The grand assembly hall stretched for miles in every direction. Its crystal walls caught the light of 3 suns and scattered rainbows across the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds. This was Prime, the heart of galactic civilization, where the mighty Galactic Council decided the fate of entire species. Today, they would decide the fate of humanity. Ambassador stood at the center of the speaking platform. She was a small woman with hair and tired eyes, but her voice carried strength that filled the enormous chamber. Behind her, a holographic display showed Earth, a blue marble spinning in the darkness of space. Around her, alien faces watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. "Humanity has done nothing wrong," said, her words translated instantly into 1,000 languages. "We settled empty worlds, worlds that no one claimed, worlds that had been abandoned for centuries." High Arbiter raised one of his 4 arms for silence. He was ancient even by standards, his purple skin wrinkled and spotted with age, but his eyes remained sharp and cruel. "Ambassador," said, "your species has been part of this galactic community for only 40 years. In that time, you have expanded to 17 star systems. You have developed weapons that you refuse to share. You have built ships faster than any we possess. This is not the behavior of peaceful neighbors. This is the behavior of conquerors." Shook her head. "We developed our own technology. That is not a crime. We defended ourselves against pirates and raiders. That is not aggression. We are not conquerors. We are survivors." A murmur passed through the assembly. Many species remembered their own early years among the stars, the struggle, the fear, the desperate need to prove themselves worthy. But old memories faded quickly when new fears took their place. Consulted with the other High Arbiters. Their whispered conversation lasted only moments. The verdict had been decided long before this trial began. "The Galactic Council has reached its decision," announced. "Humanity is found guilty of reckless expansion and technological hoarding. The sentence is total banishment. All human vessels will withdraw from Council space immediately. You will retreat beyond the outer rim. You will not return." Felt the words strike her like physical blows. The outer rim, that lawless region of dead stars and spatial anomalies, that graveyard of failed civilizations. "You cannot do this," she said. "There are 12 billion humans across our colonies, children, families. You are sentencing them to death." "We are sentencing them to the consequences of their government's actions," replied without emotion. "The border will be sealed behind you. Any human vessel attempting to return will be destroyed. This session is concluded." The assembly hall erupted in noise, some species cheering, others protesting, most simply accepting the decision as they accepted all council rulings. Stood frozen at the center of it all, watching her people's future crumble around her. 300 light-years away, Admiral Jack received the news aboard the battleship Endeavour. He was 62 years old, a career military officer who had fought in the border wars and the pirate campaigns. He had seen humanity struggle and bleed for every inch of progress among the stars. Now, a council of aliens who had never lifted a finger to help them had decided to throw humanity into the darkness. "Sir," Captain Cole said quietly, "Council warships are approaching. They're ordering us to begin withdrawal procedures." Looked at the tactical display. Dozens of alien vessels surrounded the human fleet, cruisers, destroyers, battleships. They were not here to negotiate. "How long do we have?" asked. 72 hours to clear Council space completely." Closed his eyes. 72 hours to abandon colonies that had taken decades to build. 72 hours to uproot millions of lives. 72 hours to accept the greatest humiliation in human history. "Begin the evacuation," he ordered. "All civilian vessels move first. Military ships will cover the retreat. And if the Council forces attack during withdrawal, turn to face his captain. They won't. They want us gone, not destroyed. Dead humans might create martyrs. Banished humans are just a problem that disappeared. The evacuation began within the hour. Across 17 star systems, human colonies received the terrible news. Families packed what they could carry. Factories shut down. Cities went dark. Ships lifted off by the thousands, forming long convoys that stretched across the void. On the colony world of New Brisbane, a young mother held her crying child and watched their home shrink to a dot below them. On the mining stations of Sbelt, workers abandoned equipment worth billions of credits. On the agricultural moon of Demeter, farmers burned their crops rather than leave them for alien hands. The council watched it all with satisfaction. The human problem was solving itself. Admiral commanded the rear guard, his fleet positioned between the retreating civilians and the council warships that followed at a respectful distance. He stood on the bridge of the Endeavour and watched the border approach, an invisible line that would become humanity's cage. Captain Cole joined him at the viewport. "Sir, the last civilian convoy has crossed into the outer rim. We're the only ones left in council space." Nodded slowly, "Then it's time." The Endeavour turned toward the darkness. Behind them, council vessels moved into position, already constructing the sensor nets and defense platforms that would seal humanity away forever. "They think this is the end," said quietly. Cole looked at his commander. "Isn't it?" "No." His voice was calm, but something cold burned in his eyes. "This is just the beginning. They have given us the one thing we needed most." "Sir." A reason. Watched the stars of council space fade behind them. Remember this day. Remember the faces of those who condemned us. Remember the species who cheered our banishment. Because one day we will return, and when we do, they will remember us. The Endeavour crossed into the outer rim. Behind it, the border sealed with a flash of energy. The Galactic Council celebrated their victory. They raised monuments to their wisdom. They told stories of how they had protected civilization from the aggressive humans. They did not notice the silence from beyond the rim. They did not wonder what was growing in that darkness. They would learn. In time, they would all learn. But by then, it would be far too late. 20 years passed in the darkness beyond the rim. The Galactic Council expected humanity to die slowly. They expected starvation, disease, and civil war to tear the exiles apart. They expected desperate refugees to beg at the border, pleading for mercy that would never come. They were wrong. President Laura Kent stood on the observation deck of New Geneva, watching construction drones swarm over the growing city. The asteroid had been hollow when they found it, a dead rock spinning in the void. Now it housed 3 million people, protected by layers of armor and shielding that could survive anything the outer rim threw at them. "The salvage fleet reports another successful haul," her aide reported. 12 derelict vessels, mostly intact. Dr. Vance believes at least 3 contain functional reactor cores. Laura nodded. "Good. Tell him to prioritize the weapons systems. We need every advantage we can find." This was how humanity survived. They scavenged the bones of dead civilizations. They stripped wrecked ships for parts. They studied alien technology until they understood it better than its creators ever had. The outer rim was not empty, despite what the Council believed. It was a graveyard of species that had risen and fallen long before the current galactic order existed. Their ruins held secrets. Their weapons still worked. Their knowledge waited for anyone brave enough to claim it. General Hayes had built humanity's new military from nothing. In the early years, they fought just to survive. Rogue AI swarms attacked their convoys. Spatial anomalies swallowed entire fleets. Hostile remnants of extinct species defended their territory with mindless fury. Every battle taught them something new. "We were soft," Hayes told his officers during a strategy meeting. "The Council made us soft. They gave us rules and we followed them. They told us what weapons we could use and we obeyed. No more. Out here, the only rule is survival. His doctrine was simple and brutal. Strike first, strike hard, never fight fair, use every trick, every tool, every advantage. The enemy did not care about honor, neither would humanity. The new generation grew up under this philosophy. Children born in the Outer Rim knew nothing of Earth's blue skies or the comfortable colonies their parents had lost. They knew only the cold stars and the constant struggle. They called themselves the Forged, because the fire of exile had shaped them into something new. Commander Shaw led the first deep space exploration corps. Her ships pushed further into the unknown than any human had gone before. They mapped dead systems and dying stars. They found worlds rich with resources that the Council had never discovered. On one expedition, Shaw's team found something extraordinary. It was a station, ancient beyond measure, built by a species that had vanished millions of years ago. Inside, they discovered a library, not of books, but of pure information, stored in crystals that glowed with inner light. "It's everything," Shaw reported to President Kent. "Weapons designs, ship blueprints, medical knowledge that could cure diseases we don't even have names for. Whoever built this place, they were more advanced than the Council by orders of magnitude." Laura Kent smiled for the first time in months. "Then let's make sure their knowledge doesn't go to waste." Dr. Samuel Vance led the Prometheus Initiative, humanity's most secret project. His team worked in hidden facilities scattered across the Outer Rim, combining salvaged alien technology with human innovation. The results exceeded all expectations. New shield generators that could absorb punishment that would destroy Council vessels. Weapons that bypassed enemy defenses entirely, striking directly at critical systems. Engines that bent space itself, allowing ships to appear and disappear like ghosts. "The Council thinks they're safe behind their border," Vance told his colleagues. "They think their technology is superior. They have no idea what we've created." But technology alone would not be enough. Humanity needed unity. They needed purpose. They needed a reason to keep fighting when every day brought new hardships. President Kent gave them that reason. She traveled to every colony, every station, every ship in the human fleet. She spoke to soldiers and scientists, farmers and factory workers, children and elders. Her message was always the same. They tried to destroy us. They failed. They threw us into the darkness because they feared what we might become. And now, in this darkness, we will become exactly what they feared. We will become strong. We will become united. We will become unstoppable. The people listened. They remembered the humiliation of banishment. They remembered watching their homes disappear behind them. They remembered the smug satisfaction on alien faces as humanity was cast out. That memory became fuel. That pain became power. By the 20th year, the transformation was complete. General Hayes called President Kent to the primary shipyard for a special demonstration. She arrived to find him standing before a massive viewport, his weathered face lit by the glow of 1,000 lights. "Madam President," he said, "may I present the Dominion fleet?" The viewport showed an endless field of warships, 500 vessels, each one built from the knowledge of extinct civilizations and the determination of humanity's finest minds. Battleships the size of small moons, cruisers that could outrun anything in Council space, destroyers armed with weapons that had no names because nothing like them had ever existed. Laura Kent stared at the fleet in silence. 20 years of suffering, sacrifice, and struggle had led to this moment. "Are they ready?" she asked. "They've been ready for years, ma'am. They're just waiting for your order." Laura thought of, who had died 10 years ago, still hoping for a peaceful resolution that would never come. She thought of Jack, who had passed command to younger officers before his own death, his final words a reminder of the promise they had all made. "Not yet," she said finally, "but soon, very soon." The fleet hung in the darkness, patient and terrible. 500 instruments of humanity's vengeance, waiting for the moment when they would remind the galaxy that humanity still existed. And that humanity had not forgotten. The patrol ship Vigilant was the first to disappear. It happened near the border, in a sector where nothing interesting had occurred for 20 years. One moment the ship was transmitting routine updates. The next, its signal vanished as if it had never existed. The Council sent investigators. They found nothing. No wreckage, no distress signals, no explanation. Then another patrol vanished, and another, and another. High Arbiter dismissed the early reports. The outer rim was dangerous. Ships disappeared there all the time. Perhaps the border sensors had malfunctioned, allowing some natural phenomenon to reach into Council space. But the disappearances continued. 10 ships lost in 2 months, then 20, then 50. The Council finally sent a full battle group to investigate. 12 warships, heavily armed, crewed by veterans of 100 campaigns. They would find the source of these disappearances and eliminate it. The battle group never returned. Instead, a single vessel emerged from the darkness. It was a Council destroyer, badly damaged, its hull by weapons fire. It drifted toward the nearest station and transmitted a single message before its crew abandoned ship in escape pods. The message played on every screen in Council space. Admiral Cole appeared on the broadcast. He was young for a human commander, barely 40 years old, but his eyes held the cold patience of a predator who had waited decades for this moment. "Citizens of the Galactic Council," he said, "my name is Admiral Cole of the Human Dominion. 20 years ago, you banished my people to die in the darkness. You sealed the border and celebrated your victory. You forgot about us." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We did not forget about you. We did not die. We grew. We learned. We became something new. And now we have returned. We do not come seeking negotiation. We do not come seeking peace. We come seeking what was taken from us, our dignity, our place among the stars, and the respect that you us." The broadcast showed images of the destroyed battle group. 12 Council warships, reduced to burning wreckage in a matter of minutes. "This is your first and only warning," Cole continued. "Remember what you created. Remember the people you threw away, because they are coming for you now, and nothing in this galaxy will stop them." The transmission ended. For a moment, the Council chamber was silent. Then chaos erupted. Representatives screamed accusations at each other. Military commanders demanded immediate mobilization. Civilians across 1,000 worlds watched the broadcast replay endlessly, unable to believe what they were seeing. High Arbiter struggled to maintain control. "This changes nothing," he declared. "The humans have built a fleet. So what? We have hundreds of fleets. We will crush them as easily as we banish them." He ordered the Council Defense Fleet to assemble at the nebula, where sensor readings indicated the human forces were gathering. 200 warships, representing the combined might of 6 species, formed a battle line that stretched across 5,000 kilometers. Admiral Cole brought only 60 vessels. The Council commanders laughed at the disparity. The humans were outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Their largest ship was barely half the size of a Council battleship. This would not be a battle. It would be a massacre. The fighting lasted 4 hours. Captain Lily led the assault. She was the granddaughter of Jack, raised on stories of the banishment and trained from childhood for this moment. Her squadron of 12 fighters dove into the heart of the Council formation, while the rest of the fleet engaged from multiple angles. The Council ships could not track the human vessels. They appeared from nowhere, fired weapons that bypassed shields entirely, and vanished before return fire could find them. Explosions rippled through the Council line as ships died by the dozen. "They're everywhere," a captain screamed into his communicator. "Our weapons can't touch them. Our shields do nothing. How is this possible?" It was possible because humanity had spent 20 years preparing for exactly this moment. Every tactic, every weapon, every piece of technology had been designed specifically to defeat the Council's forces. The aliens were fighting an enemy they did not understand, using rules that no longer applied. Lily's fighter streaked toward the Council flagship, her weapons locked onto the bridge section. "For my grandfather," she whispered and fired. The flagship exploded in a ball of white fire. Around it, the remains of the Council fleet drifted in silence. Admiral Cole surveyed the battlefield from the bridge of his command ship. 60 human vessels against 200 enemy warships. Final count: 17 human ships damaged, 2 destroyed. 0 Council ships surviving. "Send word to Supreme Command," Cole ordered. "The nebula is ours. The road to the core is open." On Prime, Ambassador watched the battle footage in his private chambers. He was a moderate, one of the few who had argued against banishment all those years ago. No one had listened to him then. Perhaps they would listen now. But he knew it was too late. The humans had not returned to talk. They had returned to conquer, and looking at the ease with which they had destroyed the Council's finest fleet, understood a terrible truth. The Galactic Council had not banished humanity. They had unleashed them. The Dominion fleet moved forward, passing through the wreckage of their enemies, heading toward the heart of the galaxy. Behind them, the outer rim stood empty and quiet, its purpose fulfilled. The wilderness years were over. The reckoning had begun. The conquest of Council space took 2 years. It should have taken 20. Supreme Commander Laura Kent II directed the campaign from the mobile command station Judgment. She was 40 years old, born in the Outer Rim, raised on stories of betrayal and vengeance. Unlike her mother, who had led humanity through the wilderness years, Laura II was a warrior to her core. "We do not conquer randomly," she told her generals during the first strategy session. "Every target is chosen for a reason. We take their factories. We cut their supply lines. We give their subject races a choice: join us or fall with their masters." The strategy worked perfectly. Manufacturing worlds fell first. The great shipyards of Prime went dark after a single assault. The weapons factories of surrendered without firing a shot when human marines appeared in their corridors. The mining colonies that fed Council industry were captured intact, their workers given the option to continue their jobs under new management. Most accepted. They had no loyalty to masters who had treated them as replaceable parts for centuries. General was the first major defection. He commanded the warrior clans, proud soldiers who had served the Council as enforcers for generations. But they had never forgotten that they were servants, not partners. They fought Council wars and died Council deaths while receiving nothing but scraps in return. When human envoys approached with an offer of full equality in the Dominion, he did not hesitate. "Your people understand strength," he told Supreme Commander Kent when they met. "The Council fears strength. They tried to destroy you because you grew too powerful. That tells me everything I need to know about who deserves my loyalty." The clans brought their fleets to the human side. Other species followed. The long oppressed by prejudice opened their borders to human forces. The trading guilds shifted their support when they saw which way the wind was blowing. The Council alliance crumbled from within. Dr. Vance deployed the Silence Protocol for the first time at the Battle of Station. She was the daughter of Samuel Vance, continuing her father's work after his death 5 years earlier. The weapon she had created was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was a pulse that spread across an entire star system, disrupting all electronic systems simultaneously. Ships went dead. Stations lost power. Communications failed. An entire civilization reduced to silence in a heartbeat. Station housed the Council's largest military academy. 50,000 soldiers and officers, training for wars they would never fight. When the Silence Protocol hit, They found themselves floating in darkness, helpless as human boarding parties cut through their hulls. The station surrendered within hours. Not a single human died. "Is this mercy?" Admiral Cole asked after the battle. She considered the question. "It's efficiency. Dead enemies create martyrs. Defeated enemies create lessons. Every soldier we spare is one who will spread word of what happened here. Fear is a weapon too." High Arbiter tried to rally the remaining Council forces for a final stand. He broadcast appeals to unity and courage. He reminded the member species of their ancient alliances and shared history. He promised that the tide would turn if they only stood together. No one listened. The Council dissolved in chaos as factions blamed each other for the disaster. Their remaining ships to protect the minor species that had always followed Council leadership without question now questioned everything. Found himself alone. The Dominion fleet surrounded Prime on a cool autumn day by the local calendar. 500 human warships, joined by 200 vessels and dozens more from newly allied species, formed a ring around the world that had condemned humanity 20 years earlier. Admiral Cole transmitted the surrender demand personally. "High Arbiter," he said, "you have one standard day to surrender unconditionally. Your military forces will stand down, your government will dissolve, your species will submit to Dominion authority. If you refuse, we will take this world by force. There will be no mercy. There will be no negotiation. You have created this moment. Now you will live with its consequences." The transmission ended. Stared at for a long time, watching the human ships move slowly against the stars. Each one was a reminder of his greatest mistake. He had truly believed that banishment would destroy humanity. He had expected them to fade away in the darkness, forgotten by history. Instead, they had returned stronger than ever, united by the very suffering he had inflicted upon them. His advisors urged him to fight. Some urged him to flee. Others suggested surrender might preserve some dignity for the people. Ignored them all. He walked to the great window of his chamber and looked up at the sky. The stars had never seemed so threatening. The darkness between them had never felt so full of watching eyes. "What have I done?" he whispered to no one. The countdown began. One standard day. 24 hours until the end of everything the Council had built. Supreme Commander Kent watched the clock with patience. She had waited her entire life for this moment. A few more hours meant nothing. The reckoning was almost complete. Prime fell on a quiet morning. The Council's last defenders laid down their weapons as human descended through the clouds. There was no final battle, no heroic last stand. The fight had gone out of them weeks ago. They simply watched as soldiers in armor secured the government buildings, the military installations, the communication centers. Supreme Commander Laura Kent II walked through the Grand Assembly Hall with slow, deliberate steps. This was the room where had pleaded for mercy. This was the room where had pronounced humanity's death sentence. Now it belonged to the Dominion. General walked beside her, his massive frame casting long shadows across the crystal floor. Behind them came Admiral Cole, his face unreadable as he surveyed the place that had haunted human dreams for 20 years. "Bring him," Kent ordered. Guards escorted High Arbiter into the chamber. He was old now, ancient even by standards. His purple skin had faded too. His 4 arms trembled with age and fear. The proud ruler who had banished humanity was gone, replaced by a broken creature who could barely stand. Kent looked at him for a long moment. She had imagined this meeting countless times. She had rehearsed the words she would say, the accusations she would make. But standing here now, she felt only a cold emptiness. 20 years ago you condemned 12 billion people to die in the darkness, she said. You celebrated your wisdom. You built monuments to your decision. Tell me, High Arbiter, do you still think you were wise? His voice was barely a whisper. I did what I believed was necessary. Necessary? Kent let the word hang in the air. You feared us. You feared what we might become. So you tried to destroy us before we could grow strong enough to threaten you, and in doing so, you created the very thing you feared. She turned away from him, facing the empty seats where representatives of 1,000 worlds had once sat in judgment. The Galactic Council is dissolved, she announced. All member species will surrender their military assets to the Dominion, will be preserved, but expansion beyond current borders is forbidden without Dominion approval. A new order begins today. Her words echoed through the chamber, carrying the weight of 20 years of suffering and sacrifice. Admiral Cole stepped forward. Supreme Commander, we must discuss the question of justice. The debate had divided the Dominion leadership for weeks, general and the demanded total punishment. They had thrown humanity into the darkness. Now they should experience the same fate. Scatter them across the galaxy, destroy their cities. Let them learn what it meant to be exiles. Cole disagreed. We cannot become what we fought against, he said quietly, so only Kent could hear. We cannot build our future on cruelty, no matter how justified it might feel. The galaxy is watching. What we do here will define humanity for generations. Kent considered his words. She thought of her mother, who had led humanity through the wilderness years without losing her humanity. She thought of the principles that had held them together when everything else fell apart. General, she said finally, I know you want blood. I understand why. But we did not fight this war to become monsters. We fought it to prove that we were better than those who condemned us. Growled but said nothing. He was a warrior, but he respected strength in all its forms, including the strength to show mercy. Kent turned back to, You will not be executed, High Arbiter. That would be too easy. Instead, you will be exiled to the Outer Rim with your most loyal followers. You will experience exactly what you condemned humanity to experience. If you survive, perhaps you will finally understand what you did to us. His eyes widened with horror. The Outer Rim, the graveyard of civilizations, the place where he had expected humanity to die. Please, he begged, anything but that. You showed us no mercy, Kent replied. We will show you the same mercy you showed us, the mercy of survival. Whether you live or die is in your own hands now. Guards led the former High Arbiter away. His pleas echoed through the chamber until the doors sealed behind him. In the weeks that followed, Ambassador Lydia Foster began the long work of rebuilding. She traveled to conquered worlds, meeting with local leaders, establishing new trade routes, organizing the transition of power. Many former subjects of the Council welcomed human rule. The Dominion promised stability, fair treatment, and opportunities that the old order had never provided. Some resisted, of course. There were always those who clung to the past, but resistance faded as the benefits of cooperation became clear. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Admiral Cole found little joy in victory. He stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching reconstruction drones repair a shattered orbital station. He had spent his entire life preparing for war. Now that war was over, he was not certain what remained. You seem troubled, a voice said behind him. He turned to find Supreme Commander, Kent, watching him with knowing eyes. I'm thinking about my father, Cole admitted. He served under Jack during the banishment. He always told me that the day we returned would be the happiest day of human history. But standing here now, I don't feel happy. I just feel tired. Kent nodded. We gave everything to reach this moment, our childhoods, our innocence, our capacity for trust. We won, but victory always has a price. Was it worth it? Ask me in 100 years. Kent joined him at the viewport. Our children will grow up in a galaxy where humanity rules. They will never know what it meant to be exiles. They will never feel the fear and shame that drove us. Is that worth the price we paid? I hope so. I have to hope so. Far away on a colony world at the edge of the Dominion, a young girl sat in a classroom. Her teacher was explaining history, the banishment, the wilderness years, the Great War of Liberation. To her, these were just stories, ancient history that happened before she was born. She looked out the window at the stars. They belonged to humanity now. That was simply the way things were, the way things had always been as far as she knew. Her teacher asked if there were any questions. "Why did the aliens banish us?" the girl asked. "Because they were afraid," the teacher answered. "They looked at humanity and saw something they could not control, something that would not submit, something that would never stop growing and learning and fighting. They thought they could destroy us by throwing us into the darkness. They were wrong." The girl nodded, satisfied with the answer. She returned to her studies, already forgetting the question. But somewhere in the outer rim, an old sat in a makeshift shelter and stared at the cold stars. He remembered a different galaxy. He remembered power and pride and certainty. Now he understood the truth. The darkness did not destroy, it transformed. And the galaxy would never be the same.